Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to give some feedback on Yaseen's speaking test. This is the second time I'm making this video. I did a 1-hour video with feedback on Yaseen's speaking and then realized that the audio was really awful. I had the wrong microphone plugged in. So here we go again. Enjoy. Good afternoon. My name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Of course, my full name is Muzaffarova Yasmina, and you can just call me Yaseen.
Okay, cool. So as we know, the speaking test hasn't begun yet. When we ask you your name, that's not part of the test. Thank you, Yaseen. Now, so some candidates, they prepare something for this. They say, oh, my name is da 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 da, and I was named after my great uncle because he's a very admirable and respectable member of my family because of the number of achievements that he had in his life, which was, there aren't many candidates who do that, but there are some candidates who try to develop this answer. But the question, what's your name? Yeah, it's not part of the test at all. In this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. What town or city do you live in?
Well, currently I'm living in Kazan, which is
Cool, nice. Currently I'm living, present continuous with currently, nice.
located in Kashkadarya.
Kashkadai. So I always make this point, right, that if you're using words which are not English words, like place names or things like this, it's always good just to pronounce them clearly. And I think the candidate has done a good job of pronouncing this place clearly, but maybe even add something Kashkaya, which is a province in, the south or the north of Uzbekistan or whatever. But maybe we get that.
And if I
No, we don't.
talk about my hometown, it's like neither big or small.
Okay, but now she's started to describe her hometown. And we only want to know where you live just so then we can ask you questions, right? So if you say I live in, I don't know, Kazan, as the candidate said, then the examiner can say, okay, what do you like about Kazan? Is there anything you'd like to change about Kazan? Do you think you will continue to live in Kazan for a long time? Tell me about the people in Kazan. Are they friendly? And blah, blah, blah. So we don't need so much development here, but the candidate starts describing and explaining her hometown like it's a long turn. This isn't a long turn, it's an interview.
And I love the people here because they're so gregarious, and I can say they are social butterflies.
So, it's good that the candidate knows words like gregarious and idiomatic expressions like social butterflies. Cool, that's good. But on the other hand, I don't think this is effectively used. And I don't know, it feels a bit strange to say that people in a particular city are social butterflies. I think it's okay to say that people are hospitable or friendly, but then back that up with information, right? You could say, oh yeah, people in my hometown, I think they are all social butterflies because, every time I'm going for a walk, people on the street see me and they say, oh, good morning, how are you? And they want to strike up a conversation. That helps to show that you're not just memorizing bits of language like gregarious and social butterflies, but it shows that you can apply them to a context naturally. And I don't think there's evidence that the candidate here has applied gregarious and social butterflies, that she's applied this language naturally. I think it's more likely that she just probably has a list of words that she feels will boost her vocab score, and then is looking for ways to just get them into her answer. And I don't think it works very effectively.
If you visit there, you can really enjoy like spending quality time with them. So
Yeah, again, if you visit there, you can enjoy spending quality time with them. Quality time isn't something that we spend with strangers when we visit a new place. Quality time is usually the time that we spend with the people who are near and dear to our hearts, our family, our dear friends, and things like this. So this just shows that the candidate is just trying to insert that spend quality time with someone. And all of this is in response to the question, What town or city do you live in? It's too much extension. We've gone too far off topic. Normal thing, what town or city do you live in? Oh, I live in Caerphilly. It's a small town in South Wales. It's about, I don't know, 12 or 13 kilometres from the capital, Cardiff. That's fine. That's fine. Next question.
Yeah.
And are any parts of your town particularly busy at the weekend?
Well, um, I'm gonna be honest with you. My
I'm going to be honest with you. Amazing intonation. Really, really on the money with that intonation. I'm going to be honest with you. Just perfect.
hometown isn't the place where a lot of people visit or maybe tourists.
I notice that visit, this word visit in English has a V. Now, I know that many people from, let's say, Russia, but also former Soviet countries sometimes have difficulties with this V and the W. Their W sounds like V, and their V often sounds like W. And here we definitely hear it, right? Visit. Now, it's not a big problem, but just notice it. You tell me, do you hear visit or visit?
Place where a lot of people visit or maybe
Because I hear visit. Again, I understand what she's saying. It's not a problem, but it could be evidence of, a slight limitation in phonological range. And I'm looking at my microphone and I'm hoping that this is coming through okay. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
tourists visit. But
Again, we get that visit.
it's like as I said, neither big or small, and
Neither big nor small. Clear repetition of ideas there, but neither big nor. Either or, neither nor.
just people here live, and it's not busy, or we don't have any rush hours.
Okay, we don't have any rush hours. That kind of works, I guess.
So, yeah.
And do you think you will continue living in this place in the future? Just the way that she ends that answer. So, yeah, I find that that's usually the way that candidates who speak and speak and speak and who overspeak and overdevelop, whose answers are too long, they often end their turns with so yeah. It's like they lose focus and they just speak, 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 speak until they run out of things to say. And so yeah, I don't think that is the most natural way of ending a turn. I think a turn should end. Questions and answers in part one are generally quite short, and so you don't need any like summary. But if you're speaking too long, then yeah, you need to end it with something, some type of trail off. And the most common one is so, yeah. So, yeah, let's continue.
Um, nope, at all. I'm planning to.
Nope at all is strange. Not at all. And the question was, are you planning to continue living in this place um, in the future? I think not at all. But nope, not at all is fine. But nope at all, that sounds a bit odd.
Like move like to Korea in the years to come,
Cool, in the years to come is fine.
because Korea is the country that I can like live.
So fluency is just breaking down a little bit. I do think the candidate is generally fluent. But it does feel a little bit like she's reaching for the next word, right? And this is something that's quite easy to spot in disfluency, in disfluent speech, is when the person is kind of trying to find the next word because they sometimes need to access the next word in the sentence. Just take a listen again to this. And now I do think the candidate is generally very fluent, but just notice this that it feels like she is reaching for the next word. Take a listen.
Um, nope, at all. I'm planning to like move like to Korea in the years to come, because Korea is the country that I can like live for my whole life, because I know the
quite clear that there are disfluencies there, right? Now, I think, you know, she is okay for her fluency so far. I'm putting her in like category of about band 7 for fluency so far. Um, but these things are kind of noticeable.
Vibe of this country, and I can say its vibe and my vibe
Again, we get vibe. We kind of get that vibe. Sounds a little bit like a word.
really match with each other. So I'm planning to go there.
Cool. Okay. Again, um, a reasonable answer. Still, maybe slightly long. You know, are you planning to live in this country? Are you planning to continue living in this town in the future? Not really. I have some plans to move to Korea soon, but that'll probably happen in a couple of years. But for now, I'm okay here. I think that's fine as a long enough answer. We don't need to go into the vibe of Korea and so on, but I think it's okay. Let's talk about social media now. How often do you use social media?
Oh my God, I use it every day.
Really like this, like, oh my God, I use it every day. It's very American, almost Californian type of pronunciation, but very natural.
I can say 24/7. You know what?
Cool, 24/7, perfect adverb there.
I'm studying for IELTS certificate by myself. I don't have any teachers, so I have to use YouTube. I have to use Telegram, and because there are so many IELTS instructors that can teach you like about IELTS, its format.
Yeah, there are lots and lots and lots of IELTS instructors on YouTube. While there are lots of good, there's a lot of good high quality content out there. There's also a lot of trash. General rules of the internet: don't believe anyone, everyone's a liar, everything's a scam. So do be careful. But there is, it's great. I always think studying your people who are studying English are so lucky because you have so many resources available to you. Of course, like every country has movies and books and things like this, but the variety of resources that are available to people learning English is just incredible. So yeah, I'm kind of jealous. I studied Russian with a an old textbook called Ruslan, and it was this black and white textbook with a main character called Ivan Kozlovsky. And it was a terribly awful, boring book. So yeah, great that you have YouTube. I know Russian YouTube is also a thing. Anyway, let's get back on track and let's forget about Ivan Kozlovsky.
And like everything about it. So I always watch videos that are like free. And I always watch like observe real IELTS examiners on
I always watch like observe. I don't know if we need that synonym. Observe their real IELTS examiners. Okay, cool.
YouTube. So most of my time is like spent on social media platforms.
Okay, fine. I think that development is reasonably good. Answer is again just slightly long, just slightly, but I think it's okay. And do you ever post any messages or any pictures on social media?
Um, nope, I don't prefer to post my pictures or
I don't prefer. I don't prefer is okay. I prefer not to. I prefer not to rather than I don't prefer. I know in English it's kind of strange, right? Negatives we can apply both to infinitives or to main verbs, right? I like something, I don't like something, I want to do something, I don't want to do something. But then some verbs, it just sounds better when we put the negative on the infinitive, like I decided not to go there instead of I didn't decide to go there, or I prefer not to do it instead of I don't prefer to do it. That can be tricky in English. Yeah, but I just think I prefer not to is better than I don't prefer to, but not a big problem.
something like that on my social media because we're Muslims. My religion is Islam, and it's prohibited for us to like
Cool. It's prohibited for us to do something. Really good complex grammar. In general, general advice I give my students is like in in the speaking test, don't talk about politics, don't talk about controversial issues, and in general, don't talk about religion. But here, I think it's absolutely fine. The candidate is explaining why she doesn't post things to social media. Part of her culture, part of her religion is that, she's not supposed to do it. And I think here, that's absolutely fine to bring up religion.
Post our like face or even our hands to
Nice use of even there as the focus adverb, or even our hands. And you also hear that it's reflected in the intonation, or even our hands. So even is a focus adverb. It helps us to focus on something in particular. So we get that adverb even, but then even our hands. And so the adverb even and the stress of the pronunciation helps us to focus on that word hands. Now, this is what I mean when I talk about like pronunciation adding to the message of the candidate. One comment I got recently is like, oh, you should not judge candidates' enthusiasm or their intonation or how positively that they speak about things. Just focus on grammar and vocab. Well, no, I'm here to apply the IELTS criteria, and part of the IELTS criteria is, using those natural features of pronunciation, and the highest levels with band 9, band 8, and band 7. We want to use our pronunciation to do things like this. The pronunciation should help us to focus on particular things. English is a stress timed language, not a syllable timed language. We have things like word stress, we have things like sentence stress, and that helps us to convey a message which elevates the message above just vocab and grammar, right? There's a difference between saying, I really like coffee, which doesn't sound like I like coffee, and I really like coffee, which is natural intonation. That is part of our language. And if you are in the comment section and you say, well, don't comment on my intonation about how positive or enthusiastic I sound, it's part of the test, it's part of our language. Sorry.
social media. No one have to see us. So um,
No one has to see us. I don't think no one has to see us. People shouldn't see us, I think, is better than no one has to see us.
and of course, my father doesn't like let me to post myself on social media.
My father doesn't let me to post myself. Now, in English, we have many verb patterns where we have verb object infinitive, right? Ask somebody to do something, need somebody to do something, tell somebody to do something, advise somebody to do something, expect somebody to do something. Unfortunately, with let, that to disappears. My father doesn't let me post. Let me do something, let me post, not let me to post. Yeah, this thing is called a bare infinitive, but okay, let's keep going.
He's very strict. So
He's very strict. Cool. Nice activation of natural vocab. For me, that's so much better vocab than social butterflies and gregarious, right? My father doesn't let me post on social media. He's very strict. For me, that is so much better than people in my hometown are very gregarious and they are social butterflies. Because now we are really applying a context to this word strict and to this word doesn't let me do something. Yeah.
yeah.
And have you ever taken a break from social media?
Um, well, in recent times, not I don't have time to
In recent times, I don't have time. No, for me, it's this is often whenever I hear candidates saying like recently or in recent times, I'm always the first thing that comes to my mind is, are we going to get perfect here, right? Are we going to get a perfect tense or a perfect continuous? Because usually when we talk about in recent times in English, that's usually a signal for present perfect or present perfect continuous. So instead of and what we tend to find is that candidates below a 7 in grammar tend to use present simple with this recently. Recently, I am very busy. Recently, I do a lot of things. Recently, I don't sleep very well. And I think candidates with band 7 or higher in grammar will notice that. Recently I haven't been sleeping very well, present perfect continuous. Recently I've been very busy, present perfect simple. Recently I haven't had much time, present perfect simple. But the candidate doesn't quite get it here. Recently, I'm not very, I think she said. So yeah, just missing that opportunity to score some points for grammar.
like uh break from social media platforms, but I did it once because I watched a YouTube video that talked about digital detox.
Okay, so she took a break from social media because she watched a video about digital detox. That makes sense.
And after seeing that video, I realized that digital detox is critical to our health.
We don't want to go too off topic, right? The question is, have you ever taken a break from social media? We don't now want to go into too much detail about, why digital detox is important.
Both mentally and physically, because uh, you know, we are like addicted to sedentary lifestyles.
Yeah, I don't like this drifting off topic. We are addicted to sedentary lifestyle. Again, the question is, have you ever taken a break from social media? A nice, simple answer is, yeah, I did it once. Because I watched this video on YouTube about the importance of digital detoxing. And to be honest, I felt really good. It was so nice to wake up in the morning and, you're not worrying about the messages that people have sent you or any likes that you've got. Here, the focus is still on social media and the focus is on the break that you took from social media. We don't want to go into too much detail about this video that you watched.
Because we're stuck at our phones. Um,
We're stuck to our phones.
but now, because I have so many lessons, because I'm learning two languages, I'm stuck at my phone.
I'm stuck to my phone. I'm stuck on my phone.
I don't have any time to break, to break from my phone,
To take a break, to have a break. Okay.
break free from my phone.
Oh, to break free. Fine. To break free from my phone, you saved it. Let's talk about dreams and ambitions now. Firstly, are you an ambitious person?
Well, I don't think so.
Like this, I don't think so. I think it's undervalued as an answer. So many people say like I think no or I think yes, but I like this. I think so. I don't think so. Good stuff.
Mm, if I like think about the word ambitious, I only imagine people who are like imagine things, dream about things, and they don't do anything like ambitious, but
That's a good point, actually. Very often, people who describe themselves as being ambitious are just dreamers who don't act. Not always, of course, but I think that is a sophisticated point.
lazy, you know? Um, but I'm a person who's more like stick to her dreams. For
I'm a person who is more like stick to. I'm a person who sticks to. Present simple verb stick. I'm a person who sticks to something. Again, I'm looking at my mic. I'm hoping it's okay.
example, if I have my goal, if I have my dream, I just stick to it. I make a plan
Okay, then we get stick to as a verb. Fine.
and just like write it down everything and make a
I write it down everything. I write everything down. We don't need, look, the object here is everything. We don't need two objects like everything and it. I write it down everything. I write everything down. It's fine.
plan and stick to that plan. So ambitious people, I think, is kind of they always dream and they don't do anything.
Fine, but keep in mind, your answers for part one, I think, have generally been a little bit too long. And now we're talking about people in general, people who describe themselves as being ambitious. Always remember that part one is all about you, and you want to talk mostly about yourself, not other people. And then part three is the opposite, where you want to speak about other people and ideas and not so much about yourself. Yeah, so don't worry about talking so much about ambitious people in general.
But I have but I do have dreams because like we're all human beings and it's our human nature. And and I'm more of a person who
Yeah, again, the extension, it's good that the candidate is showing a willingness to speak at length and can continue to speak and speak and speak. Part one is an interview. The answers should be a little bit shorter.
stick to who sticks to dreams and do everything as fast as possible.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we've been quite a long time, and there's 24 minutes on part one. It's too long. Okay, so What's noticeable? Pronunciation, amazing, really natural. There are times where speech becomes disconnected when fluency breaks down. There are some answers where she kind of feels like she is reaching for the next word. But, her fluency is good. Sometimes she just drifts a little bit off topic, and some of the answers for me are too long for part one. Um, Grammatically okay so far. A couple of small mistakes, like I'm a person who is stick, but then later she used stick as a verb. So yeah, a couple of minor grammatical mistakes. Let somebody to do something was used instead of let somebody do something. Really not a critical mistake at all. Like it's prohibited for us to do something, she used. I think that was a really good bit of complex grammar. So far she seems to be on that like level 7 for grammar, kind of 8 for pronunciation, maybe 7 for fluency and coherence, but I am a little bit worried about coherence, just where we might just slightly drift off topic. For vocab, it's kind of a mixed bag, where sometimes tries to overuse words like gregarious, social butterfly, and I don't really see a nice context applied there. But then she uses some other good language, like I mentioned, my father doesn't let me do something, let for permission, then he's very strict. Cool, I think that works. So, kind of 7 for me on pronunciation so far. But let's keep going. So, her task 2 is to describe a skill that she would like to learn in the future. So, this is kind of mixed between present time and future time, because if she has to describe the skill in general, that will require present tense verb forms, but also that skill that she would like to learn in the future. Explain how this skill will be useful for you is that last question, and so that's connected to the future. So a bit of variety with future time constructions would be nice for grammar here. Yeah, let's see how the candidate does. 1 minute of and 2 minutes to give your talk, and I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Of course. So, 2 days ago, I contacted my old friend, and we talk about our
2 days ago, I contacted my old friend. Contacted, cool past time, but then we talk about. Talk is a present tense verb form. We talked about with a t. We talked about.
days, like how we're living, how's life going, and she told me that she was in depression. She was in a perpetual state of stress.
Okay. What's the? I always say keep the question in mind, right? Describe a skill you would like to learn in the future. 2 days ago, I spoke to my friend and we talked about how our lives were going, and she told me she was in a perpetual state of depression. Um, why are you? Let's see where this
And
goes.
anxiety. She was just freaking out and losing her mind. And she said
Again, she was freaking out and losing her mind. Good vocab, but is it really applied to the context here? For me, not really. But let's see.
also, like, she found herself on the verge of being diagnosed with clinical depression.
Okay. Let's just analyze that. She found herself on the verge of being diagnosed with clinical depression. Now, there's a lot to like there, right? She found herself, idiomatic, on the verge of, idiomatic, being diagnosed, passive gerund, with clinical depression, collocation. Um, Again, a lot to like about that language. Wow, it's so natural and the pronunciation is perfect. But how is this connected to a skill that you'd like to learn in the future?
And she said that she'd go to
She said that she said that she was going to, or she said that she went to, but even she said that she goes might be workable, but she go?
a psychologist, and the psychologist said that she was stuck in social media.
Now, if I let's say for whatever reason I was standing at a bus stop and I started speaking to Yaseen and we got talking and I said, okay, tell me Yaseen, are there any skills you'd like to learn in the future? And then Yassine said, oh, well, a couple of days ago, I was talking to my friend because she was on the verge of being diagnosed with clinical depression. And she's told me that she was going to a psychologist. And the psychologist said that she was like stuck in on social media. I would be thinking, like, oh, she hasn't understood my question, right? She thinks that I asked her, do you have any depressed friends that you've contacted recently? That seems to be the theme, the main idea behind her speech here. I just don't know. It really it's completely off topic.
and digital devices. That's why she's comparing herself to others. And she
And I wonder if it's a strategy that, sometimes people can be tricky, and sometimes it's just the training that we get, right? It might be Yassine's strategy, it might be that Yassine has just, for whatever reason, gone off topic, or it might be something a bit worse. Now, I don't know, but if you have the strategy, which is okay, no matter, and some people I know do have the strategy, no matter what the topic is for part two, in the first minute, do all of this rehearsed stuff. Tell the story about your friend who was on the verge of being diagnosed with clinical depression. Do all of that for 1 minute to activate the good grammar, the good vocab, the good fluency, the good pronunciation, and then try to link it to the main theme. I strongly advise against that. I don't know if this was Yassine's strategy, but if any candidate thinks that they can trick the examiner by learning a memorized 1 minute bit of language at the beginning and then skillfully attach it to the main theme in the second half, it's not going to work. Sorry, don't do that. I'm not saying I know that that's Yassine's strategy. I don't know if it is, but if that is your strategy, candidate, any candidate out there, don't do it. Strongly, like I think I can mention it, right? I think I can mention it. Recently, I was examining a number of students from one particular country, a number of candidates from one particular country, and they were all doing this exact same thing, right? Using the same idiomatic expressions, and it was very clear that it was generic, memorized language. And I felt so bad for the candidate because I had to award 0 marks, 0 marks, 0 marks, 0 marks, 0 marks, 10 candidates in a row, 0 marks. Why? Because everything was memorized, everything was off topic. The language was perfect. It was accurate. There was idiomatic expressions in there. There was C2 vocab, C2 grammar. Everything was perfect. But it was so completely off topic. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 10 times in a row. Um, IELTS isn't a crazy difficult test. You don't need to strategize so much, especially someone with Yassine's level of English. Yassine speaks English amazingly well. I know she does because we had a chat before the test, we had a chat after the test. Her natural English skills are so good. She does not need to think of a strategy. Just talk about a skill that you would like to learn in the future, right? Oh, in the future, I'd like to learn how to play the guitar. Right, and then talk about why you want to learn to play the guitar. There's nothing special. We don't need, yeah. In short, don't go off topic.
advised her to um, engage in more uh, like leisure activities like
So at the moment, I'm just ignoring most of this and just thinking, well, okay, get to the point where you tell me about the skill you want to learn. So I just sit, and any good language that's there, in the back of my mind, or maybe in the front of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to ignore this and I will start judging you when you get to the point.
swimming. And she said that she learned that skill and
Oh, we did get to a skill. Hold
her
on.
to um, engage in more uh, like leisure activities like swimming.
Okay, so after 1 minute and 15 seconds, oh, sorry, we're about after 1 minute here. The candidate has mentioned that the psychologist told her friend that she should start swimming.
And she said that she learned that skill, and that skill helped her a lot. And uh, like she talked about all the process, and even
And she talk about instead of talked about.
though I'm afraid of swimming, this skill is gonna seems like so hard for me. But even though
So she hasn't explicitly stated that she would like to learn to swim. But I can kind of infer now that, okay, candidate, based on her friend's story, the candidate would like to swim. After 1 minute and 15 seconds, and I counted it during the test, after 1 minute and 15 seconds, I finally can make this reasonable inference, this reasonable conclusion that, the candidate probably wants to learn how to swim.
I feel like it's not for me, I'm planning to like look
I feel like it's not for me. Let's just go back.
about all the process, and even though I'm afraid of swimming, this skill is gonna seems like so hard for
This skill is gonna seems like so
me.
hard for
But
me,
even though I feel like it's not for me,
but even though it's not for me, yeah, it's we are verbose. We are not specific enough here. Um, just tell me that you'd like to learn how to swim at some point. At some point, tell me that you'd like to learn how to swim. And I really hope it's easy for a candidate to feel a bit uh, upset, perhaps, at my feedback. Might feel like I'm being a bit harsh, a little bit cruel with my comments. But I want to make the point that Yassine speaks English amazingly well. And this is why it's kind of disappointing to see her go off topic so much, because I know that she can do so much better. She would do so much better if she just started with, so I'd really like to learn how to play the guitar. Or I'd really like to learn how to swim. Or I'd really like to learn how to paint. Right? And then developed from there. Anyway.
I'm planning to like learn this skill in the years to come because I read an article about swimming and its like benefits.
Now she's saying that she wants to learn how to swim because she read an article, but we had 1 minute of talking about the depressed friend who learned to swim and found the benefits. So it seems to be a bit of a contradiction there. Maybe both reasons. Both her friend encouraged her and she read an article.
So I was just shocked because it can help you maintain a healthy weight and
I was shocked because it can help you maintain a healthy weight. That's not shocking information, right? Maintaining a healthy weight requires eating not eating too much food and doing exercise. That's, in most cases. It's not shocking. It's really not shocking to learn that swimming can help you maintain a healthy weight. But okay, maybe that's candidate might have found it shocking. Fine. I feel like the candidate is, you know, playing a role. I don't think she really read this article. I think she's just trying to activate language. Now, there's nothing wrong with, inventing ideas. I don't want to say lying because lying feels bad, but sometimes candidates feel more comfortable inventing stories for their part two, just making something up. In general, that's okay, you can't be punished for that, but sometimes that leads to some contradictions in stories, because, it's difficult, it's easy to remember the truth, but it's difficult to remember exactly what you've said in if you're making the story up, if you're inventing details. So for me, it feels like the candidate is just, trying to just produce and invent spontaneously any details that she thinks might help her talk.
stay in shape. Like, and while simultaneously you can find respite from like daily stressors.
Yeah, you can. While simultaneously you can find respite from daily stresses. Again, it just feels like the candidate is trying too hard to. I use the term to crowbar language into a sentence. That means like to insert bits of vocab or grammar into places in an unnatural way. For me, it feels a little bit forced.
Like academic responsibilities, maybe like
And you still get points for showing an awareness of the kind of appropriate usage of it, but For me, to get a band 8 or a 9, I want to see really, really natural use of vocab, not this forced use. But still, candidates' vocab appears to be a band 7 for sure.
Like family commitments, you can feel rejuvenated, and whenever you're feeling down, you can go just to like swimming.
Again, it feels like it's forced, right? You feel rejuvenated. Whenever you feel down, you can go swimming. I mean, it's kind of appropriately used. I just get the sense that the candidate is trying too hard to use complex language, and she doesn't need to. Her natural language skills are already amazing, and by forcing yourself to try to use too much difficult vocab, you actually bring your score down. And that's the case with almost all candidates. When you try to force yourself to use unnatural but highly impressive language, it in most cases makes your score worse, not better.
And blow off steam and just like loosen up. So this skill is much more like healthy
Okay, thank
skill.
you. All right, so you've
Mhm.
been okay. So biggest problem with this part two here is that we were just off topic for 1 minute 15, and then in the second half, it just feels a little bit like stacking difficult bits of language on top of each other. Pronunciation still fine, grammar okay, but a couple of strange mistakes like she talk about or she go. Um, yeah, that kind of does lower that grammatical thing down. I really hope we don't get more mistakes like that in part three because it will drop that grammar to a 6. Right now, I'm between the 6 and the 7, but I've spent 40 minutes on this. We need to keep going. I have a class soon. Talking about a skill you'd like to learn in the future, let's talk about skills now. Firstly, what are some important life skills that all people should have?
Well, I think many skills that all people like should learn throughout their life. But from my point of view, I do think making
Quite a bit of padding there, right? There are several skills that people should learn throughout their life, but from my point of view, I think that all of that feels like padding, and I just want to get to a direct answer. I always like, direct answer first and then development. I think all people should learn how to ba 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 and then develop.
important choices, decisions is very important
Okay, so we get that skill of making important decisions. Absolutely agree.
in our daily life because um, uh, we Muslims believe that this world is like testing us, and we're facing a lot of like different choices
Some examples might help.
in our daily life, and we have to have the ability to choose from from uh, between two things. And if you are able to choose,
Again, some examples would be really, really beneficial here to help.
if you're able to make decisions, important decisions, then I think life is much more easy than you think.
Much easier than much more easy, but this is the type of mistake I would expect to hear from an L1 user. I have family members who say much more easy, so I don't care about it. It's fine. And what can a person do then if they want to learn how to become a better decision maker?
Can you repeat?
So you mentioned that making decisions is an important skill. How can a person become a good decision maker? It's a tricky question.
Uh-huh. Well, there are a lot of courses, and there are a lot of like books even that can help you, that give you the
Cool. Fair answer.
strategy, like the process that can help you to become a good decision maker. Um, I myself learned this skill from one book, and I can say this
I mean, it's okay that she's talking about herself here, right? She's using herself as an example of someone who's read a book on how to become a better decision maker. So, relying on personal anecdotes is okay in part three. I always say, in general, though, personal language, talk about yourself in part one, and then speak about yourself less in part three. But here, I think it's okay.
book was just out of this world, and after that I learned how to like balance my like real life and my like everything.
And just notice the pronunciation of out of this world. This book was out of this world. And you can hear the pronunciation of it. This shows, for me, this is evidence that it's, a bit of language that's beyond her normal communicative repertoire, shall we say. It's not the type of language that she would usually use, it's the type of language that she's using because it's an IELTS test. She says this book was out of this world. And that when words are beyond our normal communicative repertoire, they kind of sound strange in the sentence.
like balance my like real life and my like everything
Have I missed it?
scale from one book. And I can say this book was just out of this world. And
This book was just out of this world. And so you hear the delivery of it, the delivery of this term, out of this world. This book was just out of this world is natural delivery. This book was just out of this world. It kind of feels like candidate is delivering that language with difficulty,
after that, I learned how to like balance my
which does affect your chunking and pronunciation a little bit too.
like real life and my like everything that is in my mind. And like um
Yeah, we're gone, but now there's too much. So I think it was okay for you to use yourself as an example, but the answer is too long. And also, remember the question is, what can people do to become better decision makers? And now it seems a little bit like you're focusing too much on yourself and the book that you read, and I feel like we need to keep our mind on that question. What can people do to become better decision makers?
knowing what your heart wants and what your brain wants is like essential. And that book explains like how your emotions feelings influence your decisions.
Okay, I think she ended the question fine. Okay,
So
thank you. Let's talk about the future. So I have to say, okay, thank you, because the answers are so long and I have to get to the next question. So then, what are some new skills that people will need to learn in the future?
uh-huh uh well, I can say
A couple of times the candidate has responded to the question with, uh-huh. And it shows that, she's working hard to understand the question. Yeah.
it's with the proliferation of electronic gadgets and the advancements in technology,
I'll allow it, okay, fine.
all people have to learn like technological
Yeah, all people have to learn. The question is about the future. What skills will people have to learn?
like skills. For example, I myself don't know any apps or like um,
and again, now she's gone back to herself. But remember, the question is, what skills will people, not you, need to learn in the future? But now you're saying like all people have to learn present time how to use apps, and now you're talking about yourself here.
except Telegram and YouTube. And I
So again, there's no rule that says that you absolutely 100% can't talk about yourself in part 3, but there is a tendency for, and I don't think you are a lower level candidate, but there is a tendency for lower level candidates to feel a lot more comfortable speaking about themselves and to feel less comfortable speaking about things in general. But in task 3, we want to speak about things in general. It should be impersonal, but you have this tendency to keep making your answers about yourself. And we want to avoid that. The question is not talk to me about your expertise with apps. The question is, what skills will people need in the future? So you should say what those skills are and say why those people will need those skills.
don't like know how to use even this app Zoom. So knowing how to use like apps or the apps that
So we get a connection problem here.
um,
Yeah, we get a connection problem here, and maybe in this she was going to bring it back to how learning these skills will be useful for people in the future. I guess we'll never know.
I talk about sports. My country,
So the question now is, are people is sporting talent highly respected in your country?
uh, the people in my country are not that health conscious. They're
That's not the question. Again, is sporting talent respected? Do people respect sporting talent in your country? So, do people look up to footballers or boxers or Olympians and things like this?
They don't want to like I can say stay in shape or maintain a healthy weight. They just eat like they are
Yeah, we get that stay in shape, maintain a healthy weight language, which is recycled from part two.
infatuated with junk foods, fast foods, and when it comes to talking about exercise, like sports,
We're not talking about exercise and sport. In the UK, most football fans are also not health conscious people. They're people that go to the pub and they eat chips and they drink beer, and they have these big bellies. They are really not health conscious people at all, but they still highly respect sporting talent because, they're watching football all the time, they're cheering their team and they're talking about the sports. So we're not the question here doesn't ask us to talk about whether people in your country are health conscious. It asks whether these people respect sporting talent.
they like they don't just do that because I can say the first reason is because they're lazy, and the second one is
British people are generally lazy too, but they still respect sporting talent. So yeah,
of course the sports are not
not all British people.
that prevalent, but I don't say that like all people are like that, but some people, especially in my region, like in my hometown, a lot of people do not pay attention to their health, like to sports and like things like that.
Does your country have any famous sports people? I think this will be the last. I think this might be the last question anyway. But yeah, I have to wrap it up. Like athletes or professionals.
Well, you know what? I don't watch like
Love this. You know what? Sorry, I've gone on. I've mentioned a lot of negative things, but what? I absolutely love that as an answer. Again, the candidates like natural little conversational expressions, discourse markers, and pronunciation. She's just on the money as a communicator. I just think her strategy is a bit off. But as an English user, my goodness, Yaseen is an amazing English user.
TV, or I don't watch anything except IELTS or except English. So I don't know anyone.
And again, it's difficult for the candidate here. Again, she's speaking a little bit about herself, but she just doesn't know, I guess, if there are famous sports people in her country.
Who engage in like sports activities or who are like athletes. So, um, but I heard about one woman. I can't vividly remember like her name, but she won one Japanese woman
She beat a Japanese woman. You win a competition, you win a match, you win a tournament, but you beat an opponent.
from like boxing maybe. I can't really remember. And
I can't really remember. Great pronunciation. Pronunciation is so good.
I was very proud of her because you know she's from my country, and we need these kind of people to take pride in like in our country.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test. All right, so it's taken me a long time to get through this. It always happens if I have to make a video twice about a candidate, it takes a little bit longer. Because I repeat the ideas from the first video and then I notice extra things. So anyway, let's get into some scores. So originally for this candidate, I thought that she was a band 7. That was my first impression. I thought that it was 7, 7, 7, 8. That was my first impression. 7, 7, 7, 8. That's how I felt when I was doing the test live. Now I'm going to drop the score for fluency and coherence to 6. So your fluency is generally good, and you make excellent use of discourse markers. Little expressions like you know what, those type of things, like oh my god, like really good use of discourse markers, those little bits of there's little phrases or little adverbs that we use to like guide a conversation somewhere. Cool, all of that's very good. However, you have a tendency to give overly long answers and you are sometimes off topic. You are off topic in part 2. In some of the questions in part 3, you are off topic too. So for me, your fluency is at 7, but your coherence is at 6, and that's going to pull your score down to 6. Very easy for you to fix this, Yaseen. Keep in mind the question at all times. Speak about yourself in part 1. Speak about things in general in part 3. Lexical resource for me, 7, but you should have an 8. So you show an amazing... you show an amazing range of vocab, which allows you to speak about a variety of subjects with relative ease. However, sometimes it is noticeable that you are forcing language beyond your normal communicative repertoire. And this sometimes, not always, sometimes makes your speech sound a little unnatural. Your natural vocab, if you just relaxed and use the words that come to your mind, I think you probably get an 8 for lexical resource. The fact that you are trying to force more and more vocab out brings your score down to 7. Grammatical range and accuracy. There were a few of those basic mistakes, weren't there? But I'm going to say 7. I do think... Okay, let's write. Despite some fairly basic errors, you generally controlled simple grammar well and had some success with complex structures. Yeah, for me, both accuracy and range are around about that 7. I think your range is a little better than your accuracy. Do be careful with like simple past forms like talk versus talked and third person go versus goes and things like this. You know, just a couple of times you had some of those basic mistakes. You don't want to give an examiner enough evidence to say like, oh, this is a candidate that often makes mistakes with basic grammar, because that can pull your score down. But I think just about you have enough for that band 7. And pronunciation for me is an 8. So despite some very minor issues with v and w, and the tendency for your sentence stress, let's say you're chunking, how we group words together, tendency for your chunking to become slightly inappropriate this is a long complex sentence, as a result of forcing unnatural vocab. So despite this, your pronunciation is incredible. You show wonderful intonation, and an almost full phonological range. Yeah, for me, enough for the 8. Yeah, let's move that there. For me, enough for the 8 for pronunciation. So this gives your score overall 7, right? 6, 7, 7, 8. Okay, overall for this performance, I will give you a 7.0. Areas of improvement, this is very, very straightforward. Don't try to force unnatural vocab. Always keep the question in mind. Always keep the question in mind when you are answering. Simplify and shorten your answers for part 1. Yeah, I think those are the main things. So don't try to force that unnatural vocab. I think you can get 8 in vocab. Always keep that question in mind. Don't drift off topic. Simplify and shorten your answers for part 1, fine. And also remember that part 1 is all about you, but part 3 isn't. Part 3 isn't all about you. Part 3 is about ideas, about people in general, things like this. So just be careful. Think a little bit about how much you're using like I in part three, because part three shouldn't be all about you. Part three should be, the focus should be on the ideas. But yeah, an amazing English user. For me, 7.0, that lower end of C1, I think is appropriate for this test. But I definitely think, she can boost her fluency and coherence to a 7, maybe even to an 8. She can boost her lexical resource to an 8. So I don't see any reason why the candidate can't get 7.5 or even 8.0 in the real test. Will be difficult to get that grammar up to an 8. But pronunciation could jump to a 9. So I definitely think the candidate has the potential to get an 8. But for me, in this performance, it deserves a score of 7.0. I always worry that, I try to get the balance right between positive features and negative features of a candidate, but sometimes it feels like I'm overly negative or sometimes feels like I'm overly positive. If I was overly negative in this, it's not that I think Yaseen is a bad English user, it's just that I can see that she's short of her potential. In many cases, in the vast majority of cases, B2 candidates get B2 scores. B1 candidates get B1 scores. It doesn't matter how many YouTube videos you watch. It doesn't matter how many tricks or tips or little bits of language that you learn. Your IELTS speaking score will reflect your English speaking ability in 95% of cases. But in this case with Yaseen, I don't think a 7.0 reflects her natural ability. I think her natural ability is 7.5, 8.0, and she should be getting a higher score. It's only the IELTS strategy that she's using which is bringing her score down a little bit. So big advice, relax, answer the questions as if you were talking to a normal person. Don't try to force any complex language, and you should be absolutely fine. A very impressive user of English. You should be very proud of the level that you've achieved, but certainly you can do better than 7.0, I think. Anyway, let me know what you think. Have I been too generous? Have I been too harsh? Am I too positive? Am I too negative? Yeah. And if you would like your own free practice speaking test with feedback like this, you can request this on my Telegram channel. I also do free writing checks for IELTS tasks. Again, more information on how you can take part is on my Telegram channel. A link is given in the description to this video. More videos coming soon, but for now, bye bye.